The heavy gates of the ancient palace grounds have always guarded secrets that the outside world could only guess at through the distant lens of paparazzi cameras and carefully tailored palace communiques. For centuries, the inner workings of the royal household have been treated like an impenetrable fortress, where personal struggles are masked by a stoic commitment to public duty and absolute silence. Yet, behind those immaculate limestone walls and pristine manicured gardens, a completely different reality was unfolding, marked by intense emotional conflict, institutional isolation, and a growing sense of desperation that would eventually shock the entire world. When the news first broke that a prominent young couple had made the agonizing decision to turn their backs on the highest tiers of global society, it felt like an unprecedented modern tragedy disguised as a breaking headline. The public has spent years parsing through conflicting reports, tabloid headlines, and unauthorized biographies to understand exactly how a classic contemporary romance transitioned into a high-stakes escape. It is a narrative that challenges our deepest assumptions about privilege, security, and the psychological cost of living under a permanent public microscope. To truly comprehend the gravity of this modern saga, one must look past the glossy magazine covers and delve into the heavy atmosphere of a household in crisis, where the expectations of a historic institution collided head-on with the raw survival instincts of a young family. Before we unlock the specific details of this dramatic cinematic transition and explore the intricate layers of the story that continues to captivate global audiences, take a quick moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss an investigative report. The sheer volume of rumors surrounding this historical departure has created a dense cloud of confusion, leaving observers to wonder where the objective truth ends and where the curated mythology begins. For decades, the media has maintained a complex, almost symbiotic relationship with the royal house, but the events of recent years pushed that relationship to its absolute breaking point, transforming a fairy tale into an unbearable psychological trap. The continuous scrutiny from the international press corps did not merely document their daily schedules, but actively picked apart their personal motivations, their cultural backgrounds, and their personal dynamics behind closed doors. This unrelenting gaze created an environment of profound vulnerability, where every smile was analyzed for signs of weakness and every private conversation was vulnerable to public exploitation. As the external pressure grew to an unmanageable crescendo, the walls of the palace began to feel less like a protective shield and much more like a gilded cage designed to contain an increasingly volatile emotional situation. The true depth of this isolation remains one of the most compelling aspects of the entire ordeal, as it highlights the stark contrast between public adulation and private suffering. While millions of spectators around the globe watched the grand processions and high-profile charity appearances with a sense of awe, the individuals at the center of the spectacle were grappling with a profound sense of abandonment. They found themselves navigating a complex maze of traditional protocols and rigid expectations, with little to no defense offered by the very institution they had dedicated their lives to serving. The psychological toll of this perceived betrayal cannot be understated, as it systematically dismantled their confidence in the system that was supposed to guarantee their safety and peace of mind. Every subsequent public appearance became a balancing act between maintaining a brave facade for the cameras and managing the deep-seated anxieties that threatened to boil over at any given moment. This quiet crisis of faith laid the groundwork for a dramatic re-evaluation of their future, setting off a chain reaction that would ultimately alter the landscape of the modern monarchy forever. The anticipation surrounding how this deeply sensitive chapter will be portrayed on screen speaks volumes about our collective obsession with the real-world consequences of royal life and the limits of human endurance under constant public watch. In the upcoming stages of this comprehensive broadcast, we will dissect the precise cinematic choices made to recreate these private conflicts and analyze how the production team attempted to capture the raw tension of conversations that occurred far from the public view. The narrative serves as a stark reminder that even the most spectacular fairy tales are bound by the harsh realities of human emotion and the fundamental need for personal autonomy. The decisions made during those turbulent months were not born out of a desire for disruption, but rather from a profound, urgent need to find refuge from a storm that showed no signs of abating. As we prepare to look closer at the specific scenes, the casting choices, and the dramatic confrontations that define this latest media phenomenon, the underlying question remains whether any dramatization can truly capture the weight of a choice that changed the course of history for a family caught between tradition and survival. The transition from private agony to public dramatization took a definitive turn when the Lifetime television network announced its decision to move forward with a third cinematic installment dedicated to this ongoing real-life drama titled Harry and Meghan: Escaping the Palace. This upcoming feature film deliberately aims to pull back the heavy velvet curtains of the royal household, focusing entirely on the most recent highly volatile chapter of the couple's lives as they navigated the harrowing process of stepping back from their senior royal duties. The narrative trajectory of the script centers squarely on the profound psychological weight of the situation, explicitly detailing the Duchess's rapidly growing sense of isolation, profound sadness, and the creeping despair that characterized her daily life within the rigid framework of the institution. According to early promotional materials and production insights, a primary driving force behind the dramatic tension in the film is the couple's deep-seated disappointment and frustration that the institutional entity, colloquially known as the firm, consistently chose not to defend them against the relentless, often vicious attacks perpetrated by the tabloid press. This lack of institutional support created a dangerous vacuum, leaving the couple feeling completely exposed and uniquely vulnerable to a hostile media landscape that seemed intent on their personal destruction. For the prince, the escalating crisis triggered a deeply ingrained, visceral fear that history was actively repeating itself in the most terrifying way possible, fueling an obsessive anxiety that he would ultimately be unable to protect his wife and young son from the exact same aggressive societal forces and intrusive media tactics that had directly contributed to his mother's untimely, tragic death decades prior. The recently released teaser trailer for the movie offers global audiences a stark, visceral glimpse into this imagined behind-the-scenes reality, presenting a series of highly charged, emotionally exhausting interactions that illustrate the immense friction building behind closed doors. The promotional footage features tense, whispered conversations, tearful confrontations in darkened palace rooms, and a heavy, brooding atmosphere that stands in sharp, ironic contrast to the bright, idealized fairy tale that the world thought it was witnessing during their spectacular royal wedding. The cinematic interpretation does not shy away from the most polarizing moments of recent history, making the bold creative choice to cover events as exceptionally recent and culturally impactful as the couple's bombshell, emotionally raw television interview with Oprah Winfrey. This creative decision ensures that the film operates less like a traditional historical biopic and more like an immediate, ongoing chronicle of living history, capturing the cultural zeitgeist while the real-world events are still actively reverberating through international headlines. In an effort to ground the high-stakes narrative in the domestic reality of the couple's immediate family life, the production also features an on-screen portrayal of their young son, Archie, who appears briefly in a highly discussed clip from the trailer, emphasizing the generational stakes of the conflict. The casting choices for this controversial project have drawn intense scrutiny from media analysts and fans alike, with Jordan Dean stepping into the role of the embattled Prince and Sidney Morton taking on the deeply complex mantle of the Duchess. Visual teasers demonstrate the actors' dedication to capturing the specific mannerisms, vocal cadences, and physical postures of their real-life counterparts, attempting to recreate the distinct body language that the public has memorized through countless hours of news footage. The trailer deliberately highlights the extreme vulnerability of the couple during this turbulent period, showcasing the immense pressure cooker of their environment as they debated the unthinkable prospect of abandoning their ancestral heritage for an uncertain future across the Atlantic Ocean. This cinematic rendering forces viewers to confront the raw human element behind the institutional titles, suggesting that the decision to leave was not a sudden, calculated maneuver, but rather a slow, painful accumulation of unmanageable stress and broken trust. The dialogue crafted for these scenes reflects the deep ideological divide between the traditional expectations of the British monarchy, which values silent endurance above all else, and the modern, individualistic drive for mental well-being and personal safety. As the trailer unfolds, it delivers a distinctly bittersweet, sobering message to the audience, explicitly reminding spectators that in the harsh light of reality, not all fairy tales are guaranteed to have a perfect or conventional ending. The film portrays the initial optimism of the royal marriage slowly eroding under the weight of constant surveillance, internal palace politics, and an overall lack of empathy from the surrounding courtiers. Viewers are shown a dramatized sequence of events where every attempt to find a compromise within the existing structure fails, leading inexorably to the conclusion that absolute departure was the only viable path to self-preservation. The rising tension within the script is palpable, building sequentially through a series of escalating media crises, private arguments, and moments of profound loneliness where the main characters realize they are fundamentally on their own. This portion of the narrative serves as the crucial connective tissue of the broader report, transitioning from the atmospheric intrigue of the opening act into the specific, hard-hitting details of the media project that aims to define their legacy. By focusing on the direct interpersonal dynamics between the couple during their most desperate hours, the film attempts to answer the lingering questions regarding who said what behind the closed doors of the royal residences. It explores the psychological toll of having one's character systematically assassinated on a global stage, while being forbidden by ancient protocol from speaking out or correcting the record. This structural silence, imposed by centuries of tradition, becomes the ultimate antagonist in the storyline, an invisible but omnipotent force that the characters must either submit to or completely flee. The creative team at Lifetime has clearly positioned this movie as a definitive psychological drama, prioritizing emotional authenticity and atmospheric dread over simple sensationalism, even as it utilizes the highly dramatic tropes for which the network is famous. The resulting footage presents a narrative world where luxury and privilege offer absolutely no protection against emotional ruin, effectively turning the familiar symbols of royal authority into markers of confinement and distress. As this segment of the report concludes, the stage is set for an even deeper examination of the broader cultural impact, the real-world biographies of the individuals involved, and the lasting ramifications of a media event that continues to reshape our understanding of modern royalty, celebrity culture, and the heavy price of institutional allegiance. The broader significance of this media event extends far beyond the realm of simple television entertainment, acting as a historical mirror for a society deeply divided over questions of race, modern celebrity, and the future viability of ancient institutions. To fully understand why a project like Harry and Meghan escaping the palace commands such immense global attention, one must examine the profound real-world impacts of the events it depicts and the complex backgrounds of the individuals who live them. The core of this entire narrative is rooted in a fundamental clash of cultures and values that was perhaps inevitable from the very beginning. The Duchess, born and raised in Los Angeles, California, brought a distinctly American perspective shaped by a successful career in the highly competitive entertainment industry, where personal branding, open communication, and self-advocacy are viewed as essential keys to professional survival. Prior to her marriage into the royal family, she spent years navigating the Hollywood system, most notably starring for 7 seasons in the hit legal drama series Suits, an experience that gave her a deep understanding of media mechanics, but did absolutely nothing to prepare her for the unique, centuries-old restrictions of the British court. In stark contrast, the prince's entire existence had been meticulously engineered from birth to serve the interests of a hereditary monarchy, an environment where individual desires are systematically subordinated to the continuity of the crown. His upbringing was defined by rigid military discipline, public service, and the deeply traumatic experience of losing his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, under the unrelenting chase of paparazzi in Paris in 1997. This foundational trauma fundamentally shaped his worldview, instilling an enduring distrust of the media and a fierce, uncompromising determination to prevent his own family from suffering a similar fate. When these two wildly different worlds collided in a spectacular, globally televised wedding in May of 2018, the public initially celebrated it as a transformative moment of modernization for an outdated institution. However, as the film dramatically illustrates, the initial euphoria quickly evaporated, exposing deep structural fault lines that could not be bridged by public relations campaigns or goodwill alone. The cultural relevance of the Lifetime movie lies precisely in its willingness to confront these uncomfortable truths head-on, particularly the polarizing racial dynamics and intense xenophobia that characterize much of the tabloid coverage. By exploring the deep-seated institutional resistance to change and the profound psychological isolation that resulted from it, the production elevates a specific family dispute into a universal commentary on the challenges faced by outsiders entering traditionalist power structures. The decision to include a detailed portrayal of the historic Oprah Winfrey interview, which originally aired in early 2021, serves as the narrative climax of the film and underscores the point of no return for the couple's relationship with the monarchy. That interview was not merely a media appearance. It was a calculated, explosive declaration of independence that fundamentally dismantled the carefully maintained myth of a unified, harmonious royal family. The film handles this pivotal moment by focusing on the immense emotional stakes for both individuals as they chose to break the code of silence that had governed the family for generations. The real-world fallout from that broadcast was catastrophic, triggering a global conversation about mental health, institutional racism, and the heavy price of public duty. In the years following their departure, the couple relocated to Montecito, California, establishing a multifaceted media empire through their Archewell organization. Secure in their financial independence, but permanently estranged from the core of the British establishment. This ongoing real-world separation adds an extra layer of poignancy and urgency to the cinematic adaptation, as audiences watch the dramatized origins of a rift that remains entirely unresolved to this day. The actors tasked with embodying these roles, Jordan Dean and Sidney Morton, carried an immense responsibility to deliver performances that surpass mere mimicry. Dean, an accomplished stage and television actor known for his work in high-profile theatrical productions and series like The Punisher, brought a nuanced mix of protective intensity and deep-seated generational pain to his portrayal of the prince. Morton, whose impressive credits include major roles in Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It and various acclaimed Broadway productions, successfully captured the Duchess's journey from optimistic public servant to a deeply isolated woman fighting for her emotional survival. Their performances provide the necessary emotional anchor for a story that could easily succumb to sensationalism, grounding the larger-than-life headlines in recognizable human suffering. The premiere of the film in the fall of 2021 marked a significant moment in the ongoing cultural war surrounding the couple's legacy, serving as a prominent flashpoint for fierce debates between their ardent supporters and traditionalist critics, who viewed the production as a one-sided distortion of reality. Ultimately, the lasting legacy of this story, and the films that document it, is its profound disruption of the traditional royal narrative. It proved that in the modern digital age, the mystique of the crown is no longer sufficient to guarantee unquestioning loyalty from its members or uncritical reverence from the public. By peeling back the layers of palace intrigue to reveal a